Lyra moved through the crowded streets of Zyphera, her long fingers brushing over the spines of ancient books displayed in the market stalls. The city was alive with light and sound. Hover carts zipped overhead, carrying goods from distant planets. Alien merchants shouted their prices in languages she did not know, while robotic assistants zipped among the crowd, carrying bundles to their owners. Lyra's eyes, however, were fixed on her task. She was a historian, and today she was searching for evidence that humans, the long-forgotten species, had ever existed. For centuries, humans had been considered nothing more than myths. Some scholars claimed they were fierce warriors. Others believed they were clever explorers, capable of uniting entire star systems. But none of these claims could be verified. Humans had disappeared from history so long ago that most people treated them as fairy tales. Lyra, despite her love for stories, did not believe in legends. She believed in evidence. She stopped at a small, dusty stall tucked in a quiet corner of the marketplace. The merchant was an old blue-skinned alien with golden eyes. "Looking for history or looking for stories?" he asked with a crooked smile. "Both," Lyra replied, scanning the fragile scrolls stacked before her. "Do you have anything on humans? On their warriors, their battles?" The merchant's smile faded. He leaned closer. "Humans, they were said to be mighty, yes, fearless, but mighty, yes, only in stories. The last one walked among the stars long before the Great Silence. You will find only tales, little one, nothing more." Lyra frowned but did not respond. She had come too far to leave empty-handed. She picked up a scroll and carefully unrolled it. The ink was faded and the language ancient, but she could make out the images. Humans were depicted as strong, tall, and armed with strange weapons. They fought creatures larger than cities, and they traveled across galaxies with courage unmatched by any other species. "Stories," Lyra muttered under her breath. She had expected as much. Still, a part of her wished these humans were real, not because she believed in them, but because the idea of humans surviving the galaxy on their own fascinated her. How could any being achieve such feats without help? A sudden commotion interrupted her thoughts. A loud explosion shook the street, sending people scattering in panic. Sparks flew from hovering vehicles and smoke curled into the sky. Lyra's heart raced as she instinctively ducked behind a stall. Merchants screamed and alien children cried as debris rained down. Then she saw him. A figure emerged from the smoke, walking with calm confidence. He was human, tall with broad shoulders and moving with a grace that seemed almost unreal. His clothes were scorched, his boots dusty, yet there was no sign of injury. He carried no visible weapons, yet there was a quiet authority in the way he scanned the chaos around him. Lyra's breath caught. Her mind raced. She had spent her life studying humans, believing they were myths, and now one was standing in front of her. Alive. Real. The human moved deliberately through the wreckage, helping trapped civilians without hesitation. He lifted a heavy piece of debris with ease, freeing a small alien child, then guided the frightened creature to safety. Lyra watched, astonished. Every action he took was precise, calm, and effective. There was no panic, no fear, just control. She stepped out from behind the stall, unable to stop herself. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The human turned his head slightly, his eyes scanning her quickly but not unkindly. "Kyle," he said simply. "I'm a traveler, but right now we need to get everyone to safety." Lyra blinked. Traveler? Her mind raced. Was he really a human? It seemed impossible, and yet everything about him said otherwise. His presence, his abilities, even the calm way he assessed danger. It was all human, all extraordinary. Kale nodded and gestured toward the chaos. "Follow me. We need to move." Lyra hesitated. Something deep inside her urged her to stay hidden, but curiosity won. She followed him as he moved through the city, helping aliens of every shape and size. She noticed how naturally other beings trusted him. Aliens who had been scared moments before now worked alongside him, carrying debris, guiding the injured, and setting up small barricades to protect the city. "Why are you helping them?" Lyra asked as they moved together through a narrow alley. Kale's eyes softened. "Because someone has to. Fear is easy, but courage is what matters. Everyone can survive if someone shows them the way." His words struck Lyra. They were simple yet profound. She had read countless scrolls and data files, but she had never encountered a being who could inspire so much through action alone. Legends spoke of humans as fearless, capable of turning impossible odds into victories but seeing it in front of her. It was different. It was real. Hours passed. The smoke cleared, fires were put out, and injured aliens were guided to safety. SciFi had been damaged, but the city was still standing. The citizens whispered about the human who had appeared out of nowhere, saving them with unmatched skill and courage. Lyra felt a mix of awe and confusion. As the crowd began to disperse, Kyle paused and looked around. His expression was thoughtful, almost distant. Lyra finally found the courage to approach him. You're a human, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought humans were just stories, legends. Kyle smiled faintly. Stories are often based on truth, he said. Humans once walked the stars. We were warriors, explorers, and protectors. But myths last longer than history. Lyra's mind spun. She had always dismissed humans as fantasy. Yet here he was, a living proof of a species that was supposed to have vanished. She realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was incomplete. Maybe humans weren't just legends. Maybe they were extraordinary. Why are you here? She asked. Kale looked at her with eyes that seemed to see more than just the present. Because there is danger in the galaxy, he said quietly. Threats that many species cannot face alone. I came to observe, to prepare, and maybe to help. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She had spent her life studying history, believing in logic and evidence. And now, everything she had assumed about humans was being challenged. The thought that a single human could change the fate of an entire city, maybe even a galaxy, was terrifying and thrilling. I need to know more, Lyra said, her voice steadying. I need to understand what humans are capable of. Will you show me? Kale nodded. If you are willing to learn and to act, yes. But you must understand, humans are not just strong or skilled. We survive because we think, we adapt, and we care. Fear may exist, but we never let it control us. Lyra swallowed hard. She had always been rational, logical, careful. But she felt something awaken inside her. A spark of curiosity, a desire to see history alive. She had spent her life cataloging legends. Now she was about to live one. As night fell over SciFi, the city lights flickered like stars fall into the streets. Lyra walked beside Kale, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. The adventure of a lifetime was beginning, and she was no longer just a historian. She was a witness, a student, and perhaps a participant in a story that had been waiting centuries to be told. And for the first time, Lyra realized that legends were not always stories. Sometimes they walked in plain sight, strong, fearless, and impossibly real. The night air of SciFi was heavy with the scent of smoke and burnt metal. Lyra followed Kale through narrow alleys, careful not to draw attention from the few remaining patrol drones that roamed the streets. The city had survived the attack, but its people were exhausted and fearful. Still, Kale moved with quiet purpose, navigating the chaos as if he had been born in it. Finally, they reached an abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of the city. Its walls were scarred from previous battles, and the doors creaked as Kyle pushed them open. Inside, Lyra was surprised to see a small community already taking shape. Humans, aliens, and even a few sentient robots working together to repair supplies, treat minor injuries, and fortify their temporary refuge. Kyle walked confidently among them, issuing instructions that were met with immediate respect. Lyra watched in awe. Humans were rare in the galaxy, and she had never seen one act with such calm authority. There was something in his presence that made others trust him instantly. A quiet power that came not from strength alone, but from confidence and clarity of mind. You have a network here, Lyra said softly, her eyes following Kale as he checked on a group reinforcing the walls. Kale nodded. I've learned to rely on the help of others. Alone, even a human can survive, but together, we can face far greater challenges. Lyra felt a strange mixture of admiration and skepticism. She had read countless records about human warriors, their ingenuity, and their ability to unite people in the face of danger. But seeing it firsthand was far more impressive. Kale wasn't just strong. He was strategic, calm, and capable of inspiring those around him. Why humans? She asked quietly. Why come here at all? Your species is supposed to be gone. Why involve yourself in the affairs of aliens? Kale paused, turning to look at her. His eyes reflected a deep seriousness, one that made Lyra shiver. Because threats do not wait. I have seen the galaxy fall into chaos. Civilizations crushed because no one stood against those who sought power. Humans once held back such chaos, We explored, we protected, and we ensured that weaker civilizations survived. But now, the balance is tipping again. Lyra listened, her mind racing. The galaxy had always been full of conflict, but the idea that humans had once been a stabilizing force was something she had never considered seriously. And yet Kale spoke as if he had lived through centuries of experience. Perhaps humans were not legends after all. They were history, hidden and waiting to be rediscovered. As the night deepened, Kale led her to a small corner of the warehouse where supplies were stacked neatly. He handed her a map of the city, its streets marked with symbols she did not recognize. "This is our plan," he said. "The coalition that attacked the city is not finished. They are organizing for a larger strike. We need to be ready. If we can protect this city, we can prevent the first step in a chain of destruction that could reach far beyond Zyphera." Lyra studied the map, noting the strategic points Kale had highlighted. "You're planning counterattacks?" she asked, impressed. "This is tactical thinking at a level I've never seen before." Kale shrugged. "Not attacks, defenses, adaptation. Humans excel at adapting to situations that seem hopeless. That is why legends speak of us. It's not just strength or skill, it's the ability to think, to act, to inspire others when fear is everywhere." Lyra felt a growing respect for him. She had always believed that alien species were superior in many ways, faster, stronger, technologically advanced. But Kale demonstrated that human ingenuity and courage were equal to any challenge, even in a galaxy full of species far older and more powerful. For the next few days, Lyra stayed with Kale and his group, observing his actions and learning about human strategies. She saw how he trained a small team of aliens to anticipate enemy movements, how he organized scavenging missions to collect needed supplies, and how he mediated conflicts that arose from fear and mistrust. Every action he took seemed simple, yet each decision was precise, maximizing resources and minimizing risk. One evening, while repairing a broken drone, Kyle noticed Lyra watching him. He smiled faintly. "You have questions," he said. "I do," Lyra admitted. "I need to understand how humans became so effective. How can a single species achieve so much?" Kale leaned back, his gaze distant. "Humans survive because we learn, because we adapt, and because we care, not just for ourselves but for others. That combination makes us powerful in ways others cannot imagine. It is not just bravery. It is strategy, empathy, and creativity. When faced with danger, we find solutions that seem impossible. That is why we became legends." Lyra's mind raced as she considered his words. She had always studied humans from a distance, analyzing myths and fragments of history, but now she realized that the truth was far more extraordinary. Humans were not just fighters. They were leaders, thinkers, and problem solvers. The following morning, Kale led her outside the warehouse to a higher vantage point overlooking Zyphera. The city sprawled beneath them, its buildings scarred but standing, its streets slowly coming back to life. Kale pointed toward distant lights where the Coalition scouts had been seen moving. "They are planning something bigger," he said. "We must be prepared. If we fail here, the consequences will reach beyond this city. Planets, systems, entire civilizations could be at risk." Lyra shivered. The weight of responsibility was immense, but so was her excitement. She had come seeking knowledge, and now she was standing on the edge of a story that could change the galaxy. Over the next several days, Kale trained Lyra and a small group of volunteers. He taught them how to read enemy movements, anticipate attacks, and make quick decisions under pressure. Lyra learned that humans could inspire confidence through action alone. Where aliens might hesitate, humans acted decisively, instilling courage in others. During one exercise, Kale led them through a simulation of a city-wide attack. Drones buzzed overhead, simulating enemy scouts, while hidden traps tested their responses. Lyra was astonished at how calmly Kale assessed every movement, issuing instructions that allowed their team to navigate obstacles effortlessly. "You see," he said as they finished, "humans do not rely on fear or brute strength alone. We observe, we adapt, and we make use of every advantage. That is how legends are born." Lyra nodded, realizing she had underestimated humans her entire life. The stories she had read as a child were not exaggerations. They were fragments of history waiting to be understood. And now, she was seeing the truth, living it alongside Kale. One evening, as they rested after another long day, Lyra finally asked the question that had been on her mind since the first night. "Kale, Why did you come to Zyphera specifically? Why risk yourself to help a city that is not yours? Kale's expression was thoughtful. Because no civilization exists in isolation. Threats are not limited to one species. If we do nothing, the galaxy suffers. Humans learned long ago that courage alone is not enough. We act because it is right, because it is necessary, and because we can. Lyra felt a shiver of awe. Here was a being who could walk into danger without hesitation. Yet his motivation was not glory or recognition. It was duty, responsibility, and care. Humans truly were exceptional. The next day, rumors spread through the city about the human in the warehouse. Aliens whispered of his bravery, his strategy, and his ability to inspire cooperation. Some were skeptical, but others began to follow Kale, eager to learn from him, to fight alongside him. Lyra watched as more humans, hidden across the galaxy, began to emerge quietly, bringing hope and courage wherever they went. As the sun set on Zyphera, Lyra looked at Kale and realized something profound. She had been studying legends all her life, believing they were just stories. But Kale was living proof that some legends were real. Some legends were humans, warriors, thinkers, and leaders who walked among the stars, capable of changing the fate of entire civilizations. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers she had only read about. But with Kale by her side, she sensed that humans could overcome even the greatest challenges. And perhaps, just perhaps, she could play a part in proving that humans were not myths. They were history, alive and extraordinary. As night fell, Lyra and Kale stood side by side, overlooking the city. The distant hum of alien engines echoed in the sky, a reminder that the coalition was still out there, planning, waiting. But for the first time, Lyra felt hope. Humans had returned, not as whispers in history, but as real living proof of courage, strategy, and resilience. And she knew that the story was only beginning. The city of Zyphera had barely begun to recover from the initial attack, when Kyle sensed the danger returning. From his vantage point atop a damaged observation tower, he could see shadows moving in the distance. Alien ships, smaller but faster than anything the city had faced before. They were scouts, sent to test the defenses and the courage of those who had survived. "Lyra," Kyle called, motioning for her to join him. She ran across the tower's metal walkway, her heart racing with both excitement and fear. "They are coming," he said simply. "Not just to observe this time. They are preparing for an attack that could destroy everything." Lyra swallowed hard. She had witnessed Kale's calm during smaller crises, but this felt different. The city was vulnerable. Civilians were still frightened, and the coalition's forces were larger, more organized, and more determined than before. Yet Kale did not hesitate. His mind moved quickly, assessing the terrain, the people, and the resources available. "We must prepare," he said, pointing to key streets and plazas. "Every building, every barricade, every person counts. Humans survive by thinking ahead, adapting to danger and turning disadvantage into opportunity. That is how we will face this." Over the next hours, Kale orchestrated a remarkable effort. Volunteers, humans, aliens, and a few robots worked under his guidance. They repaired barricades, reinforced buildings, and set up decoy paths to mislead enemy scouts. Lyra watched in awe as Kale moved among them, giving precise instructions, encouraging those who faltered, and inspiring confidence where there had been only fear. "This is incredible," Lyra said as they checked a barricade together. "You're turning a terrified city into a fortress." Kyle shook his head, smiling faintly. "It's not just me. Humans can inspire cooperation, but we rely on everyone. The moment people stop believing they can help is the moment they fail. Courage spreads, and when combined with strategy, it becomes unstoppable." As night fell, the first wave of scouts approached. Kyle and Lyra watched from hidden positions as the enemy moved quickly, scanning streets for weaknesses. But Kale had anticipated their route, setting up decoys and obstacles to slow them down. Alien ships collided with hidden barricades. Some were trapped in narrow alleyways, and others found themselves lured into false paths. The city was alive with movement, a chaotic dance of defense orchestrated by Kale's mind. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. Humans had long been described as brave, ingenious, and daring, but seeing it in action was far more impressive than any legend or scroll could convey. Kale was not merely reacting. He was shaping the battlefield, thinking several steps ahead, and using every resource to protect lives. Hours passed as the enemy tried to push forward, meeting obstacle after obstacle. Kale moved through the city, guiding volunteers, repairing weaknesses, and inspiring courage with his calm presence. Lyra began to understand why humans were remembered as legends. It was not just their strength or skill. It was their ability to think clearly, adapt quickly, and lead by example. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through one of the city squares. A group of alien attackers had broken through a barricade. Lyra's heart raced as she saw them advancing toward civilians. Kale ran ahead, assessing the situation instantly. Using a combination of strategy and improvisation, he directed volunteers to block escape routes, funneling the attackers into a narrow alley where their numbers counted for less. "Lyra, follow my lead," he commanded. She obeyed, her trust in him growing with every step. Together, they guided civilians to safety, Kyle's calm and decisive actions turning what could have been disaster into controlled order. Later, as they regrouped, Lyra asked, "How do you remain so calm in the middle of danger?" "I would be terrified." Kale looked at her seriously. "Fear is natural. Humans feel it too. But fear alone does not control us. We observe, we plan, and we act. That is what makes us effective. Panic is easy. Courage is choice. Every human legend began with a choice to face danger, not flee from it. The battle continued for days. Each wave of attackers tested the city's defenses, but Kale's ingenuity and leadership allowed them to hold firm. He used the city's terrain to his advantage, setting up traps that slowed enemy movement, creating diversions that confused their strategy, and ensuring that civilians were safe while the attackers were drawn into positions where they were most vulnerable. Lyra became more than an observer. She began to participate, learning Kyle's techniques and applying them in smaller skirmishes. She saw firsthand how humans combined strategy with empathy. Unlike many alien commanders, Kale valued lives and morale, understanding that people fought better when they felt protected and respected. One evening, after a particularly intense day of battle, Kale and Lyra stood atop a partially destroyed tower, watching the sun set over the city. Smoke still rose from damaged buildings, but the city had survived. The enemy was regrouping, preparing for another attack, but Kale remained calm. "Why do they keep coming?" Lyra asked. "They have already lost so many." Kyle's eyes were thoughtful. "Because they underestimate humans. They see us as few, fragile, and insignificant, but they do not understand that human courage and ingenuity cannot be measured by numbers alone. That is why legends speak of us. Legends do not exist for ordinary beings. They exist for those who can change the impossible into reality." Lyra felt a surge of admiration. She had always studied humans as a species of myth, but now she understood something profound. Humans were not just strong. They were adaptive, inspiring, and capable of shaping events in ways others could not. She realized that legends had been born not from exaggeration, but from truth. The next day brought the Coalition's main force. Larger ships hovered above the city, their shadows stretching across the streets. The citizens of Zyfera trembled in fear, but Kale moved among them, calm and purposeful. "Stay close, follow instructions, and trust in what we have prepared," he said. "We will survive this together." As the attack began, Kale orchestrated a series of defensive maneuvers that amazed Lyra. He directed drones to distract enemy ships, guided volunteers to critical points, and used the city's structure to channel the enemy into predictable paths. Where alien forces expected chaos, they found precision. Where they expected fear, they found courage. In one dramatic moment, a massive enemy drone breached the city center. Civilians screamed and scattered, but Kyle acted immediately. He assessed the drone's weak points, signaled a team, and used a combination of tools and quick thinking to disable it before it could cause destruction. Lyra watched, her jaw dropping. The stories of human warriors were not exaggeration. They were being lived in front of her eyes. By the end of the battle, Zyfera had survived, though it was battered and scarred. Kyle stood in the city square, exhausted but unbowed. The citizens looked to him not just with gratitude, but with awe. Humans were no longer myths in their eyes, they were heroes. Lyra approached Kale, her heart pounding. I understand now," she said softly. "Humans are not just legends. You are extraordinary. You inspire people, you think differently, and you make impossible things happen." Kale smiled faintly. "That is what humans have always done. We survive, we adapt, and we lead. Legends exist because they are proof that some beings are capable of more than anyone expects." Lyra realized that she had not only witnessed history, she had become part of it. Humans were not gone. They were alive, remarkable, and capable of shaping the future of the galaxy. And with Kale leading them, SciFiSaga had a chance not only to survive but to thrive. As night fell and the city settled into a wary quiet, Lyra felt a new sense of purpose. She had come to SciFiSaga seeking knowledge, and she had found more than she could have imagined. Humans were real, and their courage was not just a story. It was a living force capable of changing the course of history, and she knew that the trials of fire were only beginning. The days after the great battle brought a fragile peace to SciFiSaga. The people rebuilt what they could, mending walls, repairing roads, and tending to the injured. But deep down, Kale knew this peace would not last. The coalition would not accept defeat so easily. They would regroup, they would return, and next time they would come stronger. Still, the city had changed. Hope had returned. Citizens now looked to Kale not as a stranger, but as their leader. Even the city council, who had once doubted the tales of human warriors, began to rely on his guidance. And Lyra, who had once seen humans as myths, now walked beside Kale as both ally and student. Every day she learned something new. Kyle showed her how humans made decisions in crisis, how they analyzed risks, adapted quickly, and inspired courage in others. She saw how his presence turned fear into determination, and she understood why old legends spoke of humans as both warriors and peacemakers. One evening, as the two walked along the edge of the damaged city walls, the sky glowed with the soft light of distant stars. Lyra broke the silence. "You've done so much for SciFiSaga. People believe in you now. But I can't stop wondering, what will you do when the coalition returns?" Kale's eyes were fixed on the horizon. "We'll be ready," he said quietly. "But I'm afraid there's more to this than just another attack. Someone here within the city is helping them. The coalition knew too much. Our defenses, our supply routes, even our weak points. That's not chance. That's betrayal." Lyra's heart sank. "You mean someone from SciFiSaga?" Kale nodded. "Yes, someone who fears change or seeks power. The coalition always works through fear and corruption. We must find out who it is before they destroy everything we've built." The next few days were filled with tension. Kale and Lyra worked quietly, gathering clues, studying records, and observing unusual behavior among the city's leadership. They discovered small details: messages that didn't match, supply shipments that disappeared, and coded transmissions from within the city's communication network. It all led to one name: Counselor Vareen. Vareen was one of SciFiSaga's most respected leaders, known for his calm speeches and his promise to rebuild. But Kale had noticed something others hadn't. Vareen often appeared right before each attack, offering advice that conveniently placed the city in more danger. "We need proof," Kale said. "If we move too soon, he'll vanish. But if we wait too long, he might open the gates for the coalition himself." That night, Lyra joined Kale in the city's central archive, an underground facility that stored years of communication data. The dim light flickered across the metal walls as they searched for evidence. Hours passed in silence until Lyra suddenly gasped. "Kale, look at this." She pointed to a series of encrypted messages sent from the council chamber just hours before the last attack. The coordinates matched the coalition's fleet position exactly. Kale's expression hardened. "It's him." But before they could download the files, the alarms blared. Heavy doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The lights dimmed and Vareen's voice echoed through the speakers. "You should have stayed out of this, human," Vareen said calmly. "You may have fooled the people, but you cannot change the order of the galaxy. The coalition promised me safety, power, and a future. Humans are relics of the past. Your kind only brings war." Kale's jaw tightened. "You're wrong. Humans bring balance. We fight to protect, not to dominate." Vareen laughed bitterly. "Protect? You destroy everything you touch. The galaxy does not need your kind." Kyle moved swiftly, searching for another exit. "Lyra, stay close," he said. Using a small handheld tool, he cut into a maintenance hatch, creating a narrow escape route. They crawled through the vent system as Vareen's guards searched the archive below. When they finally emerged into the cool night air, Kale looked back at the city. "He won't stop," Kale said. "Vareen has already contacted the coalition. The next wave will come soon." Lyra's voice trembled. "Then we must warn the people." Kyle nodded. and gather allies. This battle will decide the future of Zyphera, and perhaps the galaxy. They escaped the city that night, traveling deep into the uncharted territories beyond the urban lights. The world outside Zyphera was wild and ancient, dense forests of glowing plants, floating rivers of silver mist, and skies filled with strange creatures. But it was also where old truths waited to be discovered. For days they traveled through forgotten lands, guided by Kale's instincts. Lyra often wondered how he could read the stars and navigate so perfectly. Kale would only smile and say, "Humans learned to find their way long before the stars had names." Eventually, they reached a vast canyon where ancient structures rose from the ground like the bones of a forgotten civilization. Strange markings covered the walls, symbols Lyra recognized from her studies. "These are human," she whispered, tracing the carvings with her fingers. "These ruins, they're thousands of years old. Kale, this means humans were here long before any of our records began." Kale nodded. "We traveled far once. We built, explored, and helped others. But over time, the galaxy changed. Some feared us. Others tried to erase us. Legends replaced truth." Lyra looked at him in wonder. "Then humans didn't disappear, they were hidden." "Exactly," Kale said. "We chose silence when the galaxy turned to war. But silence cannot last forever. Now the time has come to act again." Inside the ruins, they found an ancient chamber filled with holographic records. The blue light flickered as old images came to life. Humans and aliens working side by side, building cities, exploring new worlds, creating peace where there had been only conflict. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "All this time, the galaxy believed humans were warriors of destruction, but you were builders, dreamers, protectors." Kale's voice was quiet. "Warriors fight not because they love war, but because they love peace enough to defend it." As they studied the records, Kyle discovered something else, a message left by the ancient human council. It spoke of a hidden beacon, a signal that could unite lost human colonies scattered across the galaxy. The beacon's activation could bring humanity back into the galactic light. "This is our chance," Kyle said. "If we can find the beacon and activate it, others like me will come. Humanity will rise again, not to rule but to restore balance." But before they could leave, the sound of engines echoed through the canyon. Coalition ships descended from the clouds, guided by a signal. Varen's betrayal had led them here. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to move now." They ran through the ancient corridors as energy blasts lit up the night. Kale's training and quick reflexes kept them ahead of their pursuers, but they were outnumbered. Just as they reached the canyon's edge, Kale activated an ancient defense system hidden within the ruins. Blue light surged from the walls, forming a protective barrier that shielded them. The coalition forces retreated, unable to penetrate the energy field. Lyra looked at Kale in awe. "You knew how to activate it?" Kale smiled faintly. "Human technology may be old, but it remembers its creators." As they stood beneath the starlit sky, Lyra felt a deep sense of realization. The galaxy had misunderstood humans for centuries. They were not myths. They were the keepers of balance, the protectors of hope. "Kale," she said softly, "if we find this beacon, everything could change. The galaxy will know the truth." Kyle looked out at the horizon where distant lights glimmered like embers in the darkness. "Then we must find it before the coalition does. Because the truth can unite worlds or destroy them." Lyra nodded. "Then let's bring it back." And with that, the two set off under the stars, guided by courage, purpose, and the hope that humanity's light would rise again. The night after the great battle was calm but heavy with tension. The stars above Zyphera shimmered softly, as if they were watching the city heal. Smoke still drifted from broken towers and lights flickered weakly in the streets. The people had survived, but at a cost. Kale stood on the edge of the city's wall, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His armor was damaged, his face tired, but his spirit unbroken. The citizens now saw him not as a stranger, but as their savior. Everywhere he went, people saluted or nodded with quiet respect. Lyra walked up beside him, her steps soft against the stone floor. She looked at him carefully, trying to read his silent expression. "You should rest," she said gently. "You've been fighting for days." Kyle shook his head. "Rest comes later. The battle may be over, but the war isn't. They'll come again." She frowned. "The coalition? Yes, Kel replied. They never accept defeat easily, and I fear someone from inside this city is helping them. Lyra froze. Someone? From Zyfera? Kel nodded. They knew too much. Our plans, our defenses, even where I would be during the fight. That's not a guess, it's information. Someone betrayed us. Lyra looked away, troubled. The thought that one of her own people might have aided the enemy was painful. Then we must find them, she said firmly. Kel looked at her, a small smile touching his tired face. We will, but we must be careful. Whoever did this knows how to hide. For the next few days, Kyle and Lyra worked quietly. They studied communication logs, security reports, and movement records from before the attack. Kyle's sharp mind noticed things others missed. Strange code patterns, mismatched timestamps, and missing reports. At first, nothing pointed clearly to anyone. But late one evening, Lyra found something strange in the city archive. A message sent from the council chamber a few hours before the battle. It was encrypted, but Kale's human technology quickly decoded it. The message was simple. The human is here. Proceed with Phase 2. Kale's eyes darkened. That confirms it. Someone in the council warned the coalition about me. Lyra's voice trembled. But who? Kale sighed. We'll find out tonight. That night, they went to the council building quietly. The guards knew Lyra and let her pass, but Kale stayed in the shadows. They entered the council's central room, lit by blue lights and filled with glowing panels. Lyra checked the security logs again. One name appeared again and again on suspicious communications. Counselor Varen. Lyra's heart sank. It can't be him. Varen has led Zyfera for years. He helped rebuild the outer districts after the last war. Kale studied the data. Sometimes the ones who talk most about peace are afraid of change. The coalition might have offered him something: power, protection, or fear of losing control. Suddenly the lights flickered. A voice echoed from the speakers. You should not have come here, Varen's voice said calmly. Lyra spun around. Varen, where are you? I am where I have always been, he replied. Protecting Zyfera from destruction. You think the human brings hope, but he brings danger. The coalition will never stop until he is gone. I am only saving our world. Kale's voice was firm. You're not saving it, you're giving it away. You've already betrayed your people. The door behind them locked with a heavy click. Guards appeared from the corridor, their weapons raised. Varen's voice continued. Surrender, Kale. Your kind should have stayed legends. The galaxy doesn't need humans anymore. Kale's eyes narrowed. You'll soon see why legends return. He threw a small device to the floor. A flash of light filled the room, blinding the guards for a moment. Kale pulled Lyra behind him and pushed open a maintenance hatch hidden behind the control panel. They slid inside just as energy bolts struck the wall where they had been standing. The tunnel was narrow and dark. Lyra crawled quickly, her heart racing. Kale, what will we do now? The whole city will think we're the traitors. We'll prove the truth, Kyle said. But first we need to find something that can't be denied. Something ancient, something real. They left the city that night, moving through forests that glowed softly under alien moons. Strange sounds echoed from the trees, but Kale moved fearlessly, his steps sure and calm. Lyra followed closely, her mind full of questions. Kale, she said, how can you be so certain there's something out here? Kale smiled faintly. Because I've seen it before. Before the fall of human colonies, before the coalition rose to power, we built things, monuments, vaults, memory stations, places that hold the truth of who we were. After hours of walking, they reached a wide canyon surrounded by sharp cliffs. In the middle stood a large stone structure half buried in sand and dust. Its surface was covered with strange symbols glowing faintly under the starlight. Lyra gasped. These markings, they're ancient human language. Kyle nodded slowly. This is one of our memory vaults. It's been here for centuries. They entered the vault carefully. Inside, they found massive walls lined with metallic tablets and crystal pillars. When Kale touched one, blue light filled the room, forming a holographic display. It showed old images, humans standing beside alien allies, building cities, exploring galaxies together. Lyra's eyes widened. All this time, the stories were true. Humans didn't destroy worlds. They helped create them. Kale looked around, his voice low. Yes, but the coalition feared us. They feared what humans could inspire. So they erased our history, turned truth into myth, and made the galaxy forget. He pressed another panel. A map appeared, showing several stars connected by golden lines. At the center was a blinking point marked the Beacon of Unity. Lyra pointed at it. "What is that?" Kale's eyes softened. "It's a signal. A beacon that connects all hidden human colonies across the stars. If we can activate it, every surviving human world will know the truth and they will come." Lyra felt a mix of awe and fear. "That could change everything," Kyle nodded. "That's why Varen and the Coalition want me gone. They fear what this beacon means." Before they could say more, the ground trembled. From outside, engines roared, and beams of light flashed across the canyon. Coalition ships descended from the sky, surrounding the ruins. "They found us," Lyra whispered. Kyle looked at her calmly. They were tracking Varan's signal. He must have told them where we'd go. Lyra's heart pounded. "What do we do?" Kale raised his wrist and activated a small device. "We fight smart." The ancient walls began to glow brighter, reacting to his touch. Energy flowed through the ground, forming a protective barrier around the vault. When the Coalition soldiers tried to enter, they were stopped by a pulse of blue light. Kale and Lyra ran deeper inside. "The vault's defense system still works," he said. "Old human technology may be ancient, but it never forgets its makers." As the Coalition ships fired at the barrier, Kale approached a control pedestal. "Lyra, help me power up the beacon map. We'll copy its coordinates and send them to every friendly world we can reach." Together they worked quickly, their hands moving over glowing panels. Lyra couldn't stop staring at the symbols, each one carrying the story of a people she had once thought were only myths. Finally, the beacon's coordinates uploaded to Kale's wrist device. The vault shook as explosions echoed outside. Kyle turned to Lyra. "We have what we need. Now we must return to Zyphira." Lyra hesitated. "After what Varan did? The people might not believe us." Kale looked at her, his gaze steady and kind. "They will. Truth has a way of shining through lies. But we must show them proof. This data, these images, and the beacon. Once they see it, they'll understand." As they left the vault, the first light of dawn began to rise across the canyon. The Coalition ships retreated, unable to break through the shield. The ruins glowed softly in the morning light like a promise from the past. Lyra looked at Kale with renewed hope. "I believe now. Humans aren't legends." "You're the proof," Kyle smiled slightly. "Humans were never meant to be legends, Lyra. We were meant to be remembered." They walked toward the horizon, the beacon's data glowing on Kale's wrist, and the future of Zyphira resting on their shoulders. The journey home had begun.